Welcome, everyone, to the Monday, January 31st edition of the NBA Triple Double Show, powered by the Predictive Playbook and brought to you by SportsMemo TV. We're glad you could attend. I'm your host, John Ryan, and I'm joined by my always co-host. I never had a different one. I never intend to have a different one, Ronald Cabang, and we're going to have you covered for the Monday NBA card. And we're going to get right at it, Ronald. We're going to start looking at the first game, which is the Memphis Grizz taking up the Philadelphia 76ers here in the city of brotherly love. This is a huge matchup of potential MVP candidates, really, when you think about it. It's not just Embiid anymore in the league, but he has taken control of the MVP odds. And if he keeps this pace up, he probably will be the winner of it. It's just amazing what he's done for the Sixers, putting the team on his back and carrying them to a 30-19 record, 11 games over 500. At one point, Ronald, as you know, they were 17-17 on the season. So they've really have played well here over the last 15. They're 24-24-1 against the spread, 28-19 favoring the under. The Grizzlies 35-17. They're third in the Western Conference. Sixers are also third in the Eastern, but notice that the Grizzlies are 18 games over 500 versus the Sixers, who are 11 games over 500. Give us some ideas of what you're looking at in this matchup and any possibilities of leading us towards a best bet.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, the Sixers are playing hot, but the Grizzlies they are too. This is going to be the first game of a 3-game road trip for them, and other than Dylan Brooks being out, I think they're pretty healthy. They've won 16 of their last 19 games and covered 15 of those. And it's mainly due to their defense. They're fifth in the league in defensive rating the last 15 games. And they're also coming off a 20-point win over the Wizards on Saturday. And one trend that backs them today is they're actually 6-0 against the spread, following wins of 20 or more points this season. They're also 9-4 against the spread on the road against teams with a winning record. They're a dog in this game. With all that said, they're still a dog in this game because the Sixers are playing really well. And the Grizzlies have done very well as dogs this season. They're 15-7 straight up and 16-6 against the spread as dogs this season. For the Sixers, you mentioned it. They're playing really well. Embiid is playing at MVP level. They won 14 of their last 17 games. They covered 12 of them. Both of these teams are just playing really well defensively. I mentioned the Grizzlies are fifth in defensive rating in the last 15 games. Well, the Sixers are fourth, right above them. From a side perspective, it's really, really tough to step in front of either of these teams right now, in my opinion, just because they're playing so hot. That helped me shift my focus to the total, where the Sixers are 7-0 to under at home this season against teams with a winning record. They're also 5-1 to the under against teams who have a winning record so far this season, and they've lost 2 earlier this season. So sort of like a revenge spot. They bring out their defense, and I think that's going to happen this game. I think the Sixers control the pace here. They play one of the slower paces in the league, and both defenses show up. So for me, the bigger lean here is to the under.
I was going to ask you this because this is an intriguing matchup of a team like Memphis that ranks second in the association, averaging 92.9, basically 93 shots a game, going against the slowest paced type of team like the 76ers, taking 85 shots per game on average, and that's 7 shots different. But with this total of 219, it seems a little high. That the market's kind of telling us that Memphis is going to have a better time of controlling pace than the Sixers. Am I reading that right?
I mean, it could be. To me, at home, I think the Sixers do a really good job of controlling the pace. And also, with this being a key game with two of the top teams of the league, usually I would see really strong defenses. I also see teams trying to be more efficient offensively. I know when the Grizzlies play against teams with a losing record or who aren't as strong, they can run up and down the floor, right? But when you play a defensive team like the Sixers, it's tough to do. So that's the reason why I think the Sixers have a better shot at controlling the pace here than the Grizzlies. I mean, if there's a huge lead somehow in the beginning of this game, then maybe the pace would get pushed. But as long as the game stays close, and I think that's going to be the case today, I think the slower pace will be the way this game goes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. My feel in this game, the matchup is the under, and that this is going to be kind of like a playoff atmosphere. We're in the second half of the season now, and this game, is a possible preview of a possible world championship matchup. There's no discounting Memphis as being a contender, that's for sure. Great stuff, Ronald. Let's move on to the next game here at TD Garden, which means we're in Boston, and that's the Boston Celtics hosting the Miami Heat, who surprisingly now are in first place in the Eastern Conference. They are 32-18, 14 games over 500, 29-21 against the number, and 31-19 over-under. They're one of the better over-under blind bets that you could have made since the start of the season. The Celtics are still struggling, in my opinion. They're ninth in the Eastern Conference, 26-25 straight up, 25-25-1 against the number, and 16-10 at home is not a good record for a team with the history of the Celtics, and they are 21-13 as a favorite. So this game is lying with Boston as a 3.5-point favorite, which I initially was like, what? That didn't make any sense to me, but it immediately makes me lean Boston because I would have had this game lined more pick 'em based on my models. And the total is low and appropriately so at 208.5. Where are you leading us with this matchup?
Yeah, I think the reason why the Celtics are favored here is because the Heat just came off a triple OT game against the Raptors on Saturday, and then they're going back to Toronto tomorrow. So their schedule is really kind of messed up here. All five of their starters, I think the Heat. Actually, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong game here. But Butler played 52 games, right? So Lowry is out. Butler's a game time decision. 52 minutes during that triple OT game. And teams coming off a multiple OT game this season are 1-7 against the spread and 5-3 to the over. This is also a revenge spot for the Heat, though. The Celtics beat the Heat in November, and the Hawks are 7-1 to the over in revenge spots this season. I think there's sometimes when we see tired legs, we automatically think no offense, but sometimes it also means no defense, and I think that's sort of the case here with all these guys hitting 40 plus minutes in a triple OT game. The Celtics are coming into this one pretty healthy. There's no key players missing from them, really. They've been I know you mentioned they haven't been playing really well, but I think mainly they haven't been playing well offensively because in the last 10 games, they're actually number one in the league in defensive rating. And because of that, they're actually 6-0-1 to the under in their last 7 games. But as you mentioned, their offense hasn't been that great. They're actually 4-10 against the spread as home favorites against conference opponents. To me, this game is all over the board. There's ways to see why we should back the Celtics. There's ways to see why we should back the Heat. But to me, overall, I think the lean here is the Celtics based off of rest and also the fact that they're just playing really solid defense right now. And to me, defense is the key to winning games. But to the total, I think it's tough, right? Because we're looking at teams, these trends on the Heat that are pointing all over the over, but you're going against a team who's number one in defensive rating, so that could limit their offense as well. So I don't know. The total is tough, but I do lean the Celtics here in this game. How about you?
Well, I don't have an opinion either on the game. I know the Heat are the better team, at least on paper, but this is a horrible matchup with the scheduling being a wild card factor, certainly, as you mentioned. But I'll do this for the benefit of those that are listening. If you like the over, here's a gem for you that's hit 64% over the last 5 seasons. You're going to play over the total with a team like Miami that has gone over the total by more than 24 points in their previous game. Mm-hmm. Okay? And if you like the under, I have something good for you here, too, that has hit 81% over the last 5 seasons on a 26-5-1 record. You're going to play under with home teams in a game line between 200 and 209.5 points. After that team, being Boston in this case, has gone under the total by 30 or more points in their last 5 games. And with the game taking place in January, which means that it's the first part of the second half of this regular season, which I do put a lot of impotence into that, or importance, I should say, with January being that important month in transition. The contenders come to the top and the pretenders don't. So hopefully that helps people out there that have strong opinions, that they like the under, well, here's that, and if you like the over, here's this. And that's what makes it tough to handicap, Ronald, as we know.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the third and final game. And this is one that I really was looking forward to talking about, because it doesn't seem like it was more than a few days ago I was kind of bashing the Hawks, saying, my goodness gracious, how in the world could they be this many games under 500? And I guess at the time they were 8 games under 500. They were 17-25. Suddenly they go on a 7-game win streak, looking for their 8th straight win at home tonight, hosting the Toronto Raptors, who are in 8th place in the Eastern Conference. Despite the 7-game win streak, the Hawks have moved from 12th in the conference standings to 10th. But with a win tonight, they could move up as high as 8th. Mm-hmm. So they're right there again. And, of course, they're being led by Trae Young. They were down 10 points to the Lakers in their last game. And Trae Young said in the press conference, and I was impressed by this, that he is stating that it's their team defense in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, that has created this 7-game win streak. And, he's not known as a defensive player, but when he does really try to play defense, he's certainly average, if not better than that. And, the Lakers fell apart. LeBron James didn't play again, but Anthony Davis was out there. And the guy that's emerging for the Hawks, and we've been talking about this guy for a while now, is Okongwu, formerly of USC. He was the Hawks' #1 draft pick, 6th overall selection in the 2020 draft. He held Davis to 5 points in the fourth quarter with great defense, and he scored, I think it was 12 of his 17 points for the game in the fourth quarter. And the Hawks outscored him 38-20, overcoming that 101-91 third quarter deficit going into the fourth, and they won easily. So I really initially lean Hawks here, because I don't think the market's caught up to where they are right now. They have played outstanding basketball at both ends of the court, and I just don't think Toronto matches up well with them. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a couple other pieces, like the Heat, the Raptors are playing off a triple OT game, right? And even though they have a day of rest, all 5 of their starters from that game played 50+ minutes, and that's tough to come back. Sorry, that's okay. That's tough to do. Play 53 minutes, come back a day or two later, and then play another key game here in the East Coast. With the Hawks, trying to play their best ball here late in the season to make a playoff spot. And the Hawks, like you mentioned, they won 7. I think they won and covered 7 straight, including that fourth quarter come from behind victory against the Lakers that you mentioned. They were down by 10 going into that fourth. And during this 7-game run, they're #2 in offensive rating in the league this season. And what they do as a team against teams coming off of an OT game, they adjust properly. They change the way that they play. They play a faster pace. They take advantage of the tired legs. They're 2-0 against the spread and 2-0 to the over against opponents coming off an OT game. And like I mentioned earlier, the Raptors coming off a triple OT game. Teams are 1-7 against the spread and 5-3 to the over. Coming off multiple OT games this season, and to me, I think that the Hawks are playing just better ball right now, and I think they're going to push the pace here and push this game over. I lean the Hawks on the over in this game too.
I as well, and those are our 3 games that we plan to break down. Now we come to the part of the show that I guess everybody really kind of likes, because we've done well We're trying to get away from saying that we're hitting 69%, but that is the reality. But any leans, best bets that you want to make for the show?
Yeah, for this show today, I'm looking at the Sixers and Grizzlies under. I think the total is a little bit too high for this key game here. Both teams playing solid defense, and as long as the Sixers control the pace, I really like the under in this one. How about you?
I'm with you on the under, and I think that will be our show best bet. I also like the Hawks here. You know how I love betting in-game live betting. I had a 5%er on the Cincinnati Bengals, and of course, when they were down 21-3, I threw some pizza money on it, and it does feel like you're doing the wrong thing when your team that you bet on is getting trounced. It feels awkward, but you get used to it, and that's how trading is done on Wall Street too. You got to buy in the weakness and sell into the strength. And I think in this game, if it is possible that Atlanta could come out a little flat after playing so well, and just saying if they do, I'm not saying that they will, but if they do, and Toronto gets out to a 7-8 point lead in the first 5 minutes, say, you'll have an excellent shot to get Atlanta at a really cheap price, probably -1.5, -2, maybe even pick them if Toronto gets out to a fast start and they're flat. So I'll leave that as an in-game live betting thought as well. But I'm with you definitely on the under in the Sixers game, and I'll lean to the 76ers as well. So, Ronald, thanks for your time as always. I love doing this show. It's just such a blast just to break through these games, and I come away being a better professional sports bettor because of it. That's the whole idea, is that we're trying to exchange ideas and show people how this is really done. You don't do it in a vacuum. You're not in a closet afraid to hide ideas that you might have that produce winning bets. The more you share, the more you gain. And I think that's what our shows are all about. So we thank everyone out there in the viewing audience for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already to the Sports Memo TV. And we'll be back again on Wednesday with another edition of the NBA triple-double show. So until then, always remember, bet with your head and never over it, and may all the wins be yours.